Good afternoon, LinkedIn. My name is Dominic Compagnoni. I run Stream. We're the UK's first iPhone-only multi-camera live stream and event video production company. Last week, I was given access as one of just a few in the UK to the brand new LinkedIn Live feature and functionality. And rather than just me talk to camera every day, I did want to make the most of the opportunity that LinkedIn has given me. Rather than me talk to camera every day, I decided that it would be a great idea to bring some guests in and let them communicate their story, spread their message, and just generally share passions, interests, and talk about the things that they love to do, whether that's in work or outside of work. On Monday, I had the wonderful Fran Borman from Goal 17. You can find the link to that video in my profile. Yesterday, I had Pauline Kwasniak from Turn C and M Booked. You can find that video also. Today, I am delighted to have with me a guy who I only met on the phone so far and was introduced to just a few months ago. Before I bring him on, though, I'm just going to play a video that kind of sets up everything that we're going to be talking about today.
Hi, I'm Parry. I'm show director here at Event Tech Live, Europe's only dedicated event technology exhibition and conference. We've been here for 2 days now, and it's our first two-day show. We've been doing this 5 years, so this is a big year for us. Over the course of the 2 days, we've seen nearly 3,000 visits from people from over 50 countries. So the hub of event technology really is London. We've seen everything from VR, AR to operational technology, sales and marketing technology. We've had 50 content sessions across the show, across the 2 days, aimed at the exhibition market, the conference market, festivals and brands. Next year we will be back here at Event Tech Live in London at the Sherman Brewery on the 6th and 7th of November. We're launching a new exciting hall at the show where there'll be more stages, more content and new exciting technology to come and look at. Come down next November, Event Tech Live 2019.
Welcome to the show, my friend, from Event Industry News, from Event Tech Live, and from the Event Tech Awards, Mr. Adam Parry.
Hello, how are you?
How are you?
I'm fantastic, mate. Thank you very much for inviting me on to this and allow me to be one of the first people to experience this from the other side.
Well, I just hope it's a positive experience. So far, so good this week. We've had some great interaction with people. We've had some really good comments coming back from people. So it's great. And I'm really glad that you were free and able to come on. You're a busy man. You've got an awful lot going on. Before we get too much into talking about event tech, perhaps you could just be kind enough to tell those who are watching that perhaps don't know you, who you are, what you do, and perhaps a little bit about your background as well.
Yeah, sure. So Adam Parry, as you quite rightly pointed out, I am the editor of an online publication called Event Industry News. We are a digital publication, kind of like the BBC of the events industry, trying to keep the industry up to date as quickly as possible about things that are happening all around the world. We have a global audience and reach around 30,000 unique readers every single month with about 400,000 page impressions. We deliver news directly via either email or social media, or you can just go to the website and kind of browse and find information. And we cover the whole sector, or the whole industry, shall I say. So we look at the festival market, live entertainment, concerts, tours, exhibitions, conferences, and we also take quite a heavy look at technology within the events industry. That's one of the passions of mine. So that's kind of like the day-to-day kind of scenario of what goes on in my daily life. And then for my sins, I am also co-founder of Event Tech Live, and the Event Technology Awards. And those two events are really there to bolster, educate, provide learning and recognition around the developments and use of technology within the events industry globally as well.
And we spoke about what you did and where this all came from earlier on. Event Industry News didn't start out as a commercial operation.
No, well, the truth of the matter is, me and my business partner Paul, we worked together at a previous publication, which was a printed publication working in the events industry. And Event Industry News was actually one of those ideas that we wanted to incorporate into that business there and then. We found that there was a lot of information that we weren't able to publish or provide out to the sector based on things like print deadlines, ad edit ratios, timings, all those kinds of things. So there was huge amounts of information that kind of went unused. And it was at the advent of social media and the power of social media being able to get information out there quite quickly. And actually, Event Industry News was really set up to show the company that we worked for at the time that they were wrong in their decision, that wasn't the way that things were going, and we needed to focus on print. And from our point of view, they should have worked harmoniously, which they do for lots of media and publishing companies now. So actually, I kind of went off and with a friend got together and built Event Industry News, not as you see it now, in a very much more rough state than it was back then, and started, looking at providing information and news and things out to the industry. I quickly got offered soon after that a job working in another sector, which I took, but found myself still writing and publishing news in the mornings, in the evenings, in my spare time. And that's when I realized actually that I wanted to come back into the events industry, and this was my passion. And then approached Paul to come and join me. And the rest is history. We've always focused on digital. I think the only things that we print are business cards and the odd banner. But we see ourselves, I suppose, quite as a technology company. We harness technology. We use a lot of technology at Event Industry News to power the website, to power the information, to track and understand what the audience wants more of or what's interesting to them, and to provide information back to our sponsors and advertisers on kind of what ROI and stuff that they're getting from investing with us as well.
Yeah.
And that stood as well. So that's how kind of things at Event Industry News got launched.
Yeah. And when was that?
The website officially launched in November 2008. And I suppose myself and Paul worked on it as a project for around 2 years. We started off with zero, no readers, no followers,
You got to start somewhere.
Exactly, nothing. And we wanted to do things organically, and that takes time, and it takes a bit of time to understand how these things work as well. So officially incorporated in 2010, so our 10-year birthday will be next year, but that's how things started.
So you get a successful industry news publication off the ground, and then, and I'll use your words, for your sins, decided that wasn't enough, and went steaming in with Event Tech. So again, can you give us the background on that? Tell us where that came from.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose, again, one of my personal interests has always been technology. I've always been fascinated by technology and the pace at which it changes industries, sectors, and our own personal lives. And, I wanted to selfishly bring a little bit of that back into the events industry and write about technology just to satisfy my own interests. What quickly became apparent was that there were technology companies out there. There were, agencies, brands, organizers using technology. But funnily enough, event technology wasn't even a word that was kind of handed around when I first started out in the industry. And if it did, it fundamentally meant light, sound, and AV.
Yeah.
But there was all these new interesting things coming into the sector. But I was also struggling to find, any information on how to use these technologies, how to go about it. And I wanted to bring that in. And as we wrote about these technologies, we saw the audience flood to those articles and those content as well. Yeah. So that gave us kind of some knowledge and some understanding that there was an appetite out there for this as well. But we couldn't find who the leading companies were, or who were the companies doing really interesting things. So there was no recognition in the sector. If there was, anything. It was maybe one category in another event industry awards.
Yeah.
And it was very much event technology. And once you start breaking things down, it's very hard to compare apps, for example, to projection mapping or VR to AR and all these kinds of things. It's an unfair matching.
Yeah.
So the idea literally was on the back of a fag packet to kind of launch an award, see what the appetite was. We were going to do something really super low key.
Yeah.
Maybe even just travel around to the award winners and hand them an award and do a photo and all this kind of stuff. And then the entries just started flooding in, not just from the suppliers of the technologies, but from agencies and brands themselves. We were astonished when Adidas kind of first entered in that first year, like 3 entries, and we were just blown away by that.
Yeah.
And then that quickly spiraled into great expectations, as we say. We were getting people emailing us saying, when's the gala dinner? When's the ceremony? And we were like, wow, okay, so people's expectations are up here.
Wait, and I'm now starting, I think everyone's now starting to get a good feel for why you said for my sins. Because it just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So that's
I came for the first time last year. We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll come on to it. But I came for the first time last year, which I think, and you can correct me, was the first time that you run it as a 2-day event?
That's correct, yeah. Yep.
And was that demand driven? Was that appetite for a bigger event, more suppliers, more education, and actually education we'll come on to in a minute? Or was it that, why did you go to 2 days?
I suppose when we launched the event, we were cautious to make sure that the level of the event was there in terms of both attendees and suppliers. So it was obviously originally launched as a 1-day event, and that's grown and grown and grown. But what became apparent is that there was too many people all in one place at all the same time. Not only that, with a lot of free to attend events, which Event Tech Live is, there is an attrition. There are huge numbers of attendees that can't make that particular one day.
Yeah.
That's work commitments, family commitments, weather, travel, whatever you want to say. There's lots of people. So 2 days was a step to be able to provide a platform for some of those people to still come and engage. A spreading more even of the attendee over the 2 days, more education, like you said, more content, because the subject matter is so wide. So yeah, number of reasons.
There's a couple of bits even just in these first few minutes that I've picked up on. I think if you were to look from the outside a few years ago, then event tech was exactly as you said. It was the lights and the camera. So it was the lights, the camera, the sound, the whole visual display. But actually, the very nature of the way technology progresses has meant that everything has changed. The very fact that we're able to do this using iPhones as the powering device for the whole production. I'm producing everything to my right-hand side here on an iPad. That's amazing. What other technologies, like when you first started to see that actually it was beyond just the traditional AV tech, what were the first ones that you saw that were really taking off?
I think looking back to things like Event Tech Live, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, there was a flood of apps, right? There was these applications for forward-facing attendees, and they really took off. They really blew up, and some huge companies like Double Dutch and such really came out of those. And I think that was one of the first times that the industry felt that technology was changing, a little bit more accessible to them, and something different that they could do with attendees. So I think that was, to be fair to event apps, that was one of the big change shifts within the sector. I think that gave other companies and providers much more confidence that they could introduce other technologies and bring those technologies that are in our day-to-day lives or in other industries, and like VR and AR and projection mapping and those kind of things, and bring them more into and under that event technology banner. Yeah.
We're going to carry on this subject in just a minute. I think it's important because we are live and we have an audience. So I just want to say hello to a few people. Pauline, thank you very much for joining me yesterday. And thank you very much for coming back on today. We got Rachel Stefan, I think it is. She says, hi, Adam, watching from Montreal.
Hi, Rachel.
She's also said, Adam, do you think you'll do an ATL in North America?
Wow. Okay.
You want to come back to that one?
Maybe.
Okay, fine. Pauline says, actually, that would be really cool, Rachel. Katie Moorhen, hey, hi, how are you? Nick Paul says, great talk, well done. Katie then comes back and says, my clients love the extension to 2 days, more leads, but also more time for better conversations. You know,
That's good to know.
it's great feedback. You know this stuff. You know this anyway. People responded very well to the fact that it was a 2-day event last year. But you've got to make sure, and it's very important, it's a commercial operation, not just for you, but for the suppliers. There's a huge investment for the suppliers goes into those. So it has to be, you have to be able to provide value.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we make no bones about it. It's a commercial business, and you know, that is in part what drives us. But the biggest reason, there's still the fundamental underlying reason that we do Event Tech Live is the platform to educate and understand and to meet and be demonstrated these technologies and understand how they can change businesses. We have 5 stages of content at Event Tech Live for 2 days. There's a huge amount of content and ideas and sharing. And that's just what happens on the stages. There's all this kind of stuff that happens outside in networking areas and other people just meeting up and communicating with each other and sharing ideas. And, you know, I was talking to a festival just yesterday who came to me wanting to embrace technology and do something really cool around VR. They wanted to extend their event because it's in quite a small venue out to a larger population of people. And luckily enough, they knew somebody who knew me, so they were put in touch to be able to ask me some technical questions and, you know, what might it cost and what are the limitations and things like that. But, you know, she at the festival themselves said, like, we don't know where to get this information. She'd recently just heard about Event Tech Live, and that's what we want to provide is as a community, a networking opportunity, a platform to kind of come and learn and see if technology is right for you, if there's something that can help run events better.
Absolutely. And I think just walking around, like I said, I was a first timer last year, just walking around, you really do get a feel for the investment that people have made in the technology to improve the quality of events overall. And you're always going to get the LED screen providers, but even there's so much advancement and development in the quality of the LED panels that can change year on year, and also then what you can do with those changes year on year. So it's not just about saying, oh, I'm going to walk past that because they've got it's another LED panel supplier. Actually, there is some really cool stuff happening with that. I can't remember the name of the company. You might be able to remember. There was a company who had a whole load of iPads up on a wall, and it put together one image. But if you wanted to use the iPad, you can go and take that out off the wall, use it as you wanted to, and then go put it back up, and it kind of instantly connected.
Yeah, so that's actually, funnily enough, a very traditional, or has been for many years, AV company, a company called BB Pixel House.
That's it, thank you.
You know, really well known, work on high profile events like Mobile World Congress and such as a key supplier. And they've seen a shift, and they've become more of a creative company with technology, finding ways to really do things differently with those technologies and get them connected. Because, you know, LED and screens are all great, but if you can do something clever with them, you're still making the same investment, but you're getting more out of it. You're getting a bigger wow factor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess actually it's an area that I hadn't really considered, is the need for companies in event tech to continually invest and adapt to the changes and trends in market. And I guess you can relate that directly to what we see in the high street. You know, if high street stores don't adapt and change to consumer trends, they go missing. We've got loads going missing at the moment. Devon is under threat again, but it's exactly the same in any sector, and this one particularly in tech. And it's awful because it moves on so quickly. But you have to keep moving. So if you're providing LED panels, you can make a great living out of doing so, then brilliant. But if there's more that you can do, or you want to invest to make sure you're adapting to trends or making sure that you're at the forefront of that technology, then that's what you got to do.
Yeah, retail is a really good analogy, actually, and a good comparison, because in so many ways we are very similar. You know, the high street is battling with digital and online sales, and events in some ways are doing the same, especially exhibitions. They're battling for the marketing dollars that people are investing in, LinkedIn ads, Google ads, that kind of thing. And you see quite a lot of technologies cross over because they're trying to entice an audience into their environment. They're trying to sell something. They're trying to create something engaging. They're trying to create something visual. So yeah, there's a lot of crossover actually between the technologies that we see in the events industry and what retail may be slightly ahead of us in some ways because there's an ongoing continued investment and some very large chains out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really good comparison actually.
So when you decided 5-6 years ago that you were going to start Event Tech Live, obviously for an event organizer, and this is a theme that I've seen running in lots of conversations recently, is how do you decide whether or not you're going to run this as a paid for event or if it's going to be a free to attend event? Because as you say, you're a commercial organization, you've got to make money out of this. And that's a very fine balance, especially when, and we'll do this in a minute, but especially when there's a very heavy leaning towards the education side.
Yeah, I suppose we took our kind of initiative from the way that we run Event Industry News. Event Industry News is a free resource for the sector. Anybody can read it. There's no paywalls. Pretty much everything is open. We don't even really gate any of our guides and content and things like that. So everything's super accessible. And we fund that through the kind companies that support us through marketing their businesses to the audience. And that's a very old way of working and works fine and works well. I think one of the key things that stuck out in my head was a conversation with an organizer around ticketed events. And this was a very large company, a very large pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
And she was explaining to me that even a ticket price at something as low as £50 had to go through all this hierarchy and red tape to get signed off.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden one event can turn into 10 events, and all of a sudden that's maybe a bit bigger budget.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, there's so many people coming into the sector. There's so many students. There's all these people that might not even necessarily be able to pay for a ticket at £50, £150, £500. Don't get me wrong, there are some fantastic events that do extremely well at providing a ticket, and even at £1,000, still huge amounts of value for that attendee out there. But we wanted to take the route of least friction. We basically looked at Event Tech Live like a digital publication. We can provide a really cool key audience, interested audience. Then the event itself is the publication, and the exhibitors are the advertisers. And content is such a big draw. It really is, and it's one of the hardest things to get right. But that's why we put so much of it on.
We've just had a message come in from Tim Davis. Great conversation. Question: is the future of Event Tech Live to grow bigger and better and to expand, to replicate? Sorry, just got to let that load. To expand and replicate in other countries, or to break down into smaller disciplines and launch some smaller conversational conference-style gatherings, or both? Now, I was going to come on to, in a minute, scalability, because like any business, you want to grow, you want to generate more revenue. It's a commercial operation, and no one should ever hide from that fact. How do you scale an event that's already gone to 2 days that you might probably not want to push out to 3 days just yet? What do you do with it?
Yeah, you approach it very carefully, and that's one of the ways that we have approached Event Tech Live year on year. Year one of Event Tech Live was the main hall that we see now, and 80 exhibitors and 2 stages of content. And then as the appetite has been there from the audience to have more, then we've added little bits of extra things. So first it was the startup zone for the launch pad for startups. Then we added a dedicated corporate and brand side, then a dedicated festival side and live entertainment side. And this year we'll see the addition of something that kind of sits outside of any event pocket, but more focused on marketing and marketing technology and technologies to help event organizers, event marketers market their events better, because there's lots of that now. So it's baby steps. We've been pulled from pillar to post by our exhibitors who maybe are going and looking at doing something in the Middle East or in mainland Europe or the US. And we have to both look at things commercially, but also very progressively in terms of how we move and how we pivot. Because I think, you know, we built a community around us, some very, very invested companies and individuals that want to work for us and want to see us grow and benefit from that themselves in other areas. But there is no right or wrong way. We've discussed all of these. We've discussed how does Event Tech Live grow in its current form with London? Where are the best opportunities both for us as a business? Does that look like Europe? Is that the US? Is that Middle East? Do some areas such as the Middle East and let's say Dubai and Qatar and those kind of areas, would a smaller, more focused event look better? And then you could actually you could pull out you know, and do an event just around maybe AI and data for the event sector. One day,
and I think that's where Tim was asking: is that the future? Is to break it down into smaller disciplines and launch and focus more on those much more refined, focus more on those smaller conversations.
I'd like to do them all. Is what I can say on it. I'd like to do them all.
In a good portion of territories around the world, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Jamie Berry says hello from, is it Plaza PLASA Leeds?
Plaza. It's a trade show that's happening up in Leeds at the moment, yeah.
Hey Jamie, thanks for watching. Another question in from Rachel. Which areas of events that need the most innovation? Which areas of events need the most innovation? And where does technology play a role in that shift?
Okay, so I think if she's talking about within any events business, it would be operationally and day-to-day event business. We've seen so much technology and we've talked about so much already in this interview about the stuff that the attendee sees, right? So the front end, when attendees come, LED screens, VR, apps, all that kind of stuff. And there's still a huge amount of innovation to be done when it comes to the day-to-day operating of an event business, from marketing to CRMs to sales to production to project management. And that's what I'm seeing now is some of these technologies really come in to make a difference to the day-to-day business. So that's where I think the most innovation is.
And Rachel follows that up with saying, Montreal is a hub of AI, come here.
I booked my flight ticket now.
But it's really difficult, I think, especially in this sector, is there are so many areas that you could follow and chase. And there are so many disciplines within event tech that you could really hone in on. I guess one solution would be to pick, I mean, in that example, you know, if Montreal is a hub of AI, maybe that's where you go for the AI conversation. Yeah. And you go to the Middle East for another part, Northern America for another part, wherever. Yeah. There's lots of ways it could be done, but ultimately you've got to be at the stage with what you're doing in London, comfortable that it is movable.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's tough for business.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the education at Event Tech, because I think, and I'll introduce that by talking about my experience of Event Tech last year. So I started my business in September last year, 1st September, and I don't know anyone in the event industry, and it's as simple as that. I came in as a complete newbie. I had an idea for a business without having any contact at all, and I've made a few friends along the way, and I just saw on a Facebook group, I think it might have been on Delegate Wranglers, that Event Tech Live was coming up. So I thought, I'm going to drag myself up to London. So I did. And actually, a couple of weeks ago, I posted a blog article on LinkedIn about growing your web, and where you have your business at the center, and then all of the attachments that you've made to your business and how you've made them and how that's led to business spreading. And when you look at the web that I drew on my board, so much of it stems from my going to Event Tech, not just for one day, but for the second day as well. Yeah. And actually a lot from Gary Exel at Simplify, who I know you know as well. Yeah. Introduced me to loads of people at that event, and we've done work together since. It's been amazing. But one of the things, the reason I say all that is because one of the things that blew me away when I walked in was, it's not just an event that has one stage of people and a series of keynote presentations. As you said just now, you've got 5 individual tracks happening, not just for one, but for 2 full days. All of that education is entirely free. You have just I don't know how you go about organizing and finding all of the speakers you have, but it's a monster of a task. But let's just talk about the education and why you went down that route.
Right, I suppose What's funny about event technology is that it actually cuts right across through the sector, right? So every part of the events industry will harness some type of technology. Festivals, maybe cashless, exhibitions, registration, and lead capture and all that kind of stuff. So when we first launched, or as we started to look to grow those content opportunities, we decided to try and double theme a stage around two different ideas. One being predominantly the type of event and the type of organizer it was trying to talk to, but also maybe another element, maybe engagement or creativity or the future of technology and things like that. So that just allowed us to kind of mix up the content somewhat. But what was important for us was to, because we are inviting and attracting such a wide audience of event type organizer, we wanted still to be able to provide them some focus. So they understood that this stage is more relevant to me and it's going to have more content on it for me. That also allows, strategically suppliers who are maybe focused a little bit more on one vertical within the sector to position themselves so they get more airtime, more brand exposure in front of that audience, and that's worked really well. But that's how we've kind of approached it. In terms of sourcing speakers, it is a huge task. It's even a bigger task to go through the thousands of submissions we get every year and then try and finalize that down into a program. I could put probably like 10 days worth of content. We get so much great content submitted. And there's obviously suppliers.
Right.
Yeah, it's got to be right. And that shifts every single year of what's the important content. There are some themes and some threads that run through it. But some interesting content I'm looking to incorporate this year is around the acquisition of technology based on companies exiting a business. So selling a business in the future. This was a conversation I had recently with a large exhibition organizer out in Miami, and we were talking about his choice in certain technologies. And the first time I'd heard it, he was like, I chose X because I want to sell my company in 10 years, and that piece of technology is recognized to my buyers. So new theme of content there.
And that's a shift in the way people talk about their own businesses. And I've seen that happen as well. People that are just starting out, that have just come up with the idea, that have just sowing the seed and getting their name out there or getting their business out there, started it with the intention of exiting in 10 years' time, and are planning and using technology to make themselves more buyable. It's crazy.
It's a strategy these days. It's
Absolutely.
Fundamentally build your business on recognized technologies and trusted technologies, especially anything around sales and money and marketing and those kind of things and data. Then it makes those conversations better and can make a difference on that exit fee of a zero on the end.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that we haven't mentioned, which is, of course, with all of the education, it's not just at the event. Last year, I think, was the first year that you live streamed everything in full 4K.
Mm-hmm.
It had obviously been before. You've got a partner for that. We can mention them in a minute. But you live stream the whole thing. So I find it really interesting because I've had so many conversations with people. Obviously, I provide live streaming services. So having those conversations with people about events, and I've come up against the barrier myself. Oh no, we don't want to live stream it because people will stop coming. What's your experience?
It's not true. It's not true. Whatever. If you're not live streaming it, those people that weren't coming already weren't coming. It's as simple as that. Now, whether that's your job in that you've not provided them enough information or convinced them enough to make that trip. And some of those people that can't come are people around the corner from the venue or from the event, or have maybe been in previous years. There's so many reasons why people can't make an event. But if you're clever about it, you can still provide value back to those people within the room, those exhibitors.
Absolutely.
You're capturing the attention of a wider net and a wider audience. You're marketing the show to that audience for next year. You're providing a wider understanding of technology to those people out there. That person that might have seen that live stream, let's say in Japan, could be the person that buys that piece of technology that was being spoken about and invests £1 million in it. So, you know, again, it's about like Event Industry News, it's about providing outwardly accessible information. And then there's also the conversation around accessibility.
Yes.
You know, we always think it's very easy for people to get to events, and, you know, even with accessible venues, but in a lot of cases, it's sometimes not. There's family commitments, there's maybe abilities, you know, medical reasons, all that kind of stuff. Somebody might just be ill. So live streaming should be a way for us to reach that audience and still provide value back to the audience within the venue.
Absolutely. I mean, I did a job for somebody, one of the first that I ever did, actually, towards the end of September last year, and it was the first time that I'd really I'd worked on a live stream for the education part of a conference. And what we saw was we had a really good audience on both days, but actually some of the audience from day one came down on day two because they thought, well, I'm sitting in the office tomorrow. I've got a meeting cancelled, so I can pop down the road and I can be there. Or they rearranged the plans, and they actually had a greater number of attendees on the second day than they did, the number one, than they were expecting, and also that they then had on day one. So it does work, but it's a really tough sell. And I guess if you are in a traditional event mode in your head, and that's all you're looking at, it's a very hard thing to break and say, no, we are going to live stream, because it's a bit of a leap of faith.
Yeah, and I think here's another example of where it could save people time and money and provide a better experience. Not last year, but I think it was the year before, I had a gentleman come and find me and say, you know, could you point me in the direction of this speaker? I've seen the session scheduled, but it's not happened. And, you know, I had to tell him, unfortunately, that speaker, due to unforeseen circumstances, had informed us on the morning of the event that they weren't able to make it. This gentleman that had come to find this speaker travelled all the way from Amsterdam just for that one session.
Wow.
So invested a huge amount of time and money and resource into, you know, which is great. You know, that's fantastic that he felt so compelled to kind of attend the event just for that one thing. That's brilliant. But if we'd been able to provide a live stream to him, then maybe he'd still get the same amount of value that he wanted, or even in that case, wouldn't have wasted a plane journey, a hotel, and all the other things kind of around it. So
it's also just been pointed out by Rachel, it's also an added value for exhibitors to gain extended visibility to remote people. And that's very easy. That's a very easy one to forget. There is absolutely a benefit for the exhibitors. One
of the things that we invested in last year was an extension of that. So we record all the content as well at Event Tech Live, and the industry is consistently, even more so in the exhibition market, consistently talking about engaging the community 365 days a year. A big toll, a big ask, and I don't think anybody's cracked it yet. What we decided to do was we had a company called 360 Expo come in using Matterport technology, which is kind of the leading technology to create VR environments in, shoot the whole venue on the evening of the first day, when all the stands and everything's in situ, come and shoot the whole event site, create that in VR or accessible through a laptop. And then we've been able to provide more value to attendees or even new people that come across the event and the exhibitors by uploading all the content into that. So they can go and watch content from each stage. They can click on an exhibitor. That exhibitor could create more inquiries and leads and all that kind of stuff. And for me, that's kind of like the same argument around live streaming. We could be suggesting that we're cannibalizing an audience by putting that event up there on the web. But for me, it's not. It's providing the appetite that's there from people to engage with that content and those exhibitors.
Putting yourself through that process of having the whole thing photographed using Matterport actually puts an enormous amount of pressure on you, though, because I know how long it takes to produce content, and you also can't have bodies moving, and you've got to be completely still. So that's a big task.
Clean venue, cleared venue, lots of cleaners in coming and
the night before an event. Way to go for putting more pressure on yourself.
But these are the type of things that can change the sector.
Yeah.
Not only do we provide an opportunity for more visitors, more leads for exhibitors, we've been able to use it as a tool to show people who've never been to the venue or to the event before what their stand or their positioning might look like if they want to invest in future events.
Yeah.
And from a production point of view, our team's been able to literally go back into the venue. We're based in the north. We're not based in London. Our venue's in London. Our event's in London. So, trains up and down can become quite costly quite quickly.
Yeah.
But this has provided a representation that our team's been able to go back into and go, oh, actually, can we do something over here with this aisle? Is there a fire extinguisher in this wall that's not on the CAD plan kind of thing? So,
and that's an extension of how you can use technology to help organizing an event.
Yeah.
It's not just technology that's being used at an event. You're now using the technology that you found through your events to help you organize yours while reducing cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest reasons to look at technology. There's always this inherent idea that the only thing that technology does is cost and take off your bottom line. And actually, in so many instances, it's a revenue driver, it's a money and time saver. As an industry, that's what we do. We charge for our time. As organisers, we charge for our time. So the more time that we can save frees up more opportunities to make more money or launch new ideas, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then you've got the awards.
Yes.
Where you recognise, I haven't got the list of awards. I meant to put it on the screen, actually, the list of all of the awards that you've got in the categories.
There's a few.
I expect you to know them off the top of your head, so reel them off, go.
I know, best event app of the year. No, there's, again, that's changed quite drastically over the last 6 years. We've had to introduce new categories because of the explosion of new technologies or those technologies affecting our sector. I don't think we had anything around VR and AR in the first year, for example.
No.
And then new segments launch, and we have to recognise those as well, but also try and be careful not to all of a sudden have 60 awards. I mean, award ceremonies are long enough as they are, and we try to do as much to kind of limit the time of presenting and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you're still into like probably around the 2-hour mark of getting through 30 awards kind of thing. So yeah, unfortunately I can't reel them off all the top of my head, but
I wasn't really expecting to, but it does lead me nicely on because I'm going to put this up on the screen now. Let me just find it. You can get more information about Event Tech Live from www.eventtechlive.com. I've put the web address on the screen now. I am assuming, and I think I'm right in saying that you can access Event Tech Awards from there. Is that right? Or do I need to put another address on the screen as well?
eventtechnologyawards.co.uk.
Okay, fine. I can potentially put that up in a minute when you're talking about something else. But can you get to it through Event Tech Live?
Not at the moment. Well, yes, you can. Sorry, the site we are just having the site redeveloped. So,
okay,
yeah, you can.
Okay, so for more information about Event Tech Live or to access Event Tech Awards, go to eventtechlive.com. I will try and put the thing up here. Actually, otherwise, I'll just drop it in as a comment in here in a minute so people can click on it.
Cool.
You can see the whole list of categories. You will find the category that I'm going to be entering. There'll be, in fact, I think there's 2 this year that I'm going to enter. But you should do it because if you don't get your name in the hat, then you're definitely not going to win. And it's not very expensive to do, but please do it. Let's very, very briefly, let's just talk about the future. What's going on? What are you seeing is kind of the trends in how tech is being changed now, how people are using tech, and what do you think is likely to happen over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I mean, there's some very interesting technologies coming out in other sectors that will trickle down to ours.
Yeah.
Going back to my earlier point, I think one of the areas that I would recommend anybody who organizes events, whether that's as an individual freelancer or a larger organization, is really to really take a keen look at things that help market the event, produce the event, manage contractors, project management, those kind of tools, because they can really have a very quick impact on revenue and overall spend within an organization. They can really pay for themselves quite quickly. And once you can get them connected up, then that's really cool. To mention a few platforms that I think are really interesting, one of the biggest issues around any technology is integration, is getting those technologies to talk to each other, whether that's your sales and CRM. We're really excited to be working with a company called Blender, who are very much focused on solving that problem within the events industry, and have come from the events industry previously. So, again, don't worry so much about getting your CRM to talk to your marketing, to talk to your registration. That company's trying to solve that. I think we'll see more
by providing the connector or being everything.
By being the connector.
Okay. Yeah.
Because events are niche and businesses are niche, just because, and there are some great platforms out there that provide lots of functionality all in one platform, but even still, they won't do everything. They're still not your Salesforce. They're still not your Marketo. So by being able to use a system like Blender, you can really pick and choose what technologies you want. You can pick an approach that's best in class and niche, if that fits your business and you have the budget for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so much. I think, as VR devices come down, that's really exciting, to make accessibility better. As we as consumers adopt more, the AR technologies, AR accessible technologies, that will open up some really huge doors for event organizers.
So much of it, probably for you as an event organizer, is determined by what happens with consumers. Because if consumers adopt VR and AR more widespread, then it will enable, number one, it will bring the cost down and therefore enable you to find better ways to use it for the event, right?
Yeah, I mean, I class myself as quite an early adopter, but I've only just purchased my first VR device.
Okay.
Because I wanted to wait for that. I've experienced it in many fashions, but I wanted that technology to get to a certain point, which was, for me, no cables attached, and that's just been done by Oculus.
Yeah.
So now that provides a really compelling reason for me to purchase that. That means now all those people that potentially do VR events can reach me as an attendee. So yeah, it's very much driven by consumer.
And will you, how are you implementing the use of, so for example, VR, AR, is that something you're looking to implement as an organizer of event tech? Like, can you see you going that way?
Well, obviously we've done,
and also, have you got ideas for how you could use it?
Yeah, I suppose that we've already had the example of how we're using currently VR, because Matterport allows us to do that. But again, we've had the ability, or we've had access, luckily, to companies that want to work with us in that instance many years ago. Same with AR, and we've tried a few things, but we've not got any of that at the moment, purely because we are strong believers that there needs to be a real reason to do something rather than just do it for the sake of it, or it be nice and shiny.
Yeah.
And we now have quite a stringent process of onboarding any new technology provider into Event Tech Live.
Yeah.
There needs to be a fundamental, valid reason to do it rather than just doing it for the sake of it. So, and when you take that approach, you're happy with the results, rather than kind of doing something and not having the engagement that you thought, and then all of a sudden you're back to square one. So that's our approach anyway.
Which makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
And I guess as we get towards wrapping this up, because I know you have to move on, you've got other things to do this afternoon. What about just kind of finish with event industry news? Where's that going? What have you got planned?
So again, we've moved with the times. We're doing more around podcasting.
Yeah.
Podcasting's been done for a long time now. It's not a new medium, but weirdly for me, it seems anyway that the medium is actually blowing up.
There's not many around in this space though.
There's a few. I'll provide a list for some people somewhere. There's some really interesting ones, and I've got ideas in our company to do other podcasts more focused around niche areas. That's one of the brilliant things around podcasting, is you can reach a very large audience on a very niche subject matter, and have this could be a podcast right now, right? Couldn't it? You wrap the content up, publish it up. Yeah. And what was really interesting for me was the recent Google I/O conference. They showed how they have changed search engine rankings to show you results and podcasts related to the topics that you are searching for. So if you are a business,
yeah,
podcasting can be a really good free organic search tool in terms of rankings. So we're kind of looking at, how does the audience want to engage with content? How can we harness new technologies to bolster that?
yeah.
Desktop notifications is a big one for us, that we've seen a huge uptake in people wanting to be notified full enough by desktop rather than subscribe to an email.
I get them.
Yeah.
I get the event industry news, and I would say probably 8 or 9 times out of 10 now, if one pops up on my desktop, I will click on it. And you put quite a lot of stuff out. Is that how? That's obviously done by one of your team. Really effective way of communicating, and I would personally far rather have that delivery than a ton of emails coming in.
Yeah, we're as everybody's trying to get the inbox down, aren't they? And even Gmail and other companies are bringing features out to snooze things and archive things off till a later date and all this kind of stuff to get that inbox focused.
Yeah.
But we fundamentally live with these in our pockets, which are full of notifications. and it's a nice way for people to go, okay, that's relevant to me, I'll click on that, or no, that's not. And it's out of your way, out of your screen, out of your face, gone. So I think those kind of things that are less obtrusive will be the way that we kind of deliver information and news.
Let's do this now because I've got this one to go up on the screen as well. So let's put up, for more information about event industry news, go to eventindustrynews.com. That's www.eventindustrynews.com. From there, you don't subscribe to an email because I don't think you send any emails, do you?
We do have a subscriber database. Okay. We actually have quite a large one of people that subscribe to information. We send out a roundup of news on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then a podcast update on a Thursday.
Plus all of the desktop notifications and apps. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you have no reason to miss anything at all from any one of Adam's team because there's a lot coming out. I'm not a subscriber to the email. I just rely on the desktop notifications, but they do come in. Adam, is there any kind of final message? Actually, let's just do this briefly. Can you just tell us when Event Tech is and how people can get tickets, and also finally maybe a little reminder as to how they can enter the awards?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, the awards, eventtechnologyawards.co.uk. If you are interested in entering, then entries are only up until the end of this month. But being shortlisted is a great achievement, and lots of companies get lots of mileage out of that alone, maybe even if they don't win. So there's a great reason to enter. Event Tech Live is the 6th and 7th of November this year. As we've already mentioned, there's no cost to enter. The event registration is free of charge. And we don't launch registration until back towards the September time. So that's when it'll go live. But the easiest way to be notified of when that does happen is either to follow us on Twitter at Event Tech Live, or even subscribe to notifications on that website, and we'll notify you when that's available as well.
You just kind of you led this in straight in for me, because I've now got the series of all of your Twitter handles that I could have put up on the screen. So in order, Adam, you personally are at Punchtown Parry on Twitter.
Yep, that's correct.
Punchtown Parry, that's on the screen for everybody now. As Event Tech, you are on there as Event Tech Live, at Event Tech Live. And then there is Event Industry News, which is on there as Event News Blog. That's at Event News Blog. Adam, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. We've had an increasing number of guests, and actually right at the last minute, I'm going to mention him because we mentioned him, you and I mentioned earlier. Graham has jumped on and says, "Hi Adam, hope you're well, looking good. Only just joined the stream, but we'll watch back on demand. Speak soon, G." He's a guy that I know very well, and I know you. I now know you a long time too. So, really nice that we're able to do that. And Graham, thanks for joining. And I know you're going to watch later because you're really good at doing that. Adam, thank you very, very much for joining.
No,
step away. I will wrap up the show, and I will catch up with you very soon. Thanks for joining us. Oh, there we go. So that's Adam Parry. What a great guy! What a great conversation, and what a superb subject. It's blowing up. Event tech is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I love the fact that I get to be a part of it, doing what I do, using iPhones as my devices for live streaming, multi-camera iPhone, everything that I'm doing is being done live. That's why you see me looking away to the screen. It's why you see I get a little bit lost and I bring the wrong person up onto the camera. It's just happened right at the end of that conversation. But everything is being done live. This is what I do. I'm just using the very fact that I've got access to LinkedIn Live as an opportunity to promote my business and to give up others in other businesses the opportunity to do the same thing. Which leads nicely into me talking about what's happening tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm going to be joined by a guy named Andy Collinson. Andy runs two businesses. The first is the World Flair Association. They are the association that looks after all of the competitions and manages an awful lot of the flair bartenders across the world. He also runs a company called Ace Bar Events, providing mobile bars for the events industry. We're going to be talking about Andy's use of social media. He has grown the World Flair Association to reach a global audience by producing live content from every single competition that he does, as well as taking the competition to other parts of the world. So I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation for any businesses that are trying to reach a global audience. Andy has been there and done it. They get a crazy number of views on some of their live streams. It's great. Considering it's quite a niche thing, flair bartending isn't a globally known sport, but it is getting bigger and bigger, and it's thanks to Andy. So tomorrow is going to be a brilliant conversation. I will then, sorry, I'm struggling a little bit here because we have a couple of things going on. As many of you will know, it is Mental Health Awareness Week. And when I very first started out with this idea of LinkedIn Live and doing it on a daily basis, I wanted to try and get a couple of guests in that I knew had a good story to tell. And that's why we've had who we've had in so far this week. However, I am absolutely delighted because just yesterday afternoon, I had it confirmed that Simon Blake, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Mental Health First Aid England, is going to join me on the show on Friday. It will be at 2 o'clock. He will be joining me, like all of my other guests this week, over video chat. And we're going to be talking everything from accessibility, inclusivity, diversity, as well as workplace mental health, as well as Mental Health Awareness Week, as well as their key theme this year, which is body image. I had a very brief chat with Simon this morning. It's going to be a really, really good conversation. Obviously, very well timed for Mental Health Awareness Week. So the two things have come together brilliantly. So that's this Friday at 2 o'clock. He's going to be a great guest. He's got an awful lot to talk about. And what Mental Health First Aid England are doing is providing the tools to others so that you can help other people. And I will get Simon to talk more about that on Friday. I will be pushing more information out about that show over the course of the next 24, 36 hours. But please join me. Stick it in your diary. I can't at the moment schedule these to go out so that you can get reminders on LinkedIn because they haven't yet built that functionality. So just keep an eye on LinkedIn. It will be at 2 o'clock Friday afternoon. We will be back, however, in the meantime, tomorrow with Andy Collinson. My name is Dominic from Stream. We're the UK's first iPhone-only multi-camera live stream and event video production company. It's been my pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you very much again to Adam for joining us. And I will see you all with Andy Collinson from the WFA tomorrow afternoon.